Good morning, everyone. Yanti here. Trust you're doing okay. How is your day going? How's your Sunday going? Okay, this is Yanti Life, where we come to let you know that the Bible has nothing to do with religion. Has nothing to do with religion. Okay? The Bible is basically the greatest psychological book that has ever been written. And I started this whole conversation with saying you are God, and some people, I saw some reaction regarding that, and some people didn't like it. And I want to even add to it. It's not just you that is God. Everything, both living and non-living, are all God, not just you. And the reason is not, we'll be teaching this using the Bible because, as I said, the Bible is not a religious book, it's a psychological book, psychological one. So, okay. So, but today's topic is about the concept of self, or what you can call the assumption of self, and this is responsible for creating the world around you. So, everything you're experiencing in your life today is as a result of how you see yourself. Okay? And it's very simple, it's very straightforward. How do you see yourself? How you see yourself is the concept of yourself. How you see yourself is the assumption of yourself. And these are the things that are responsible for all the experiences that you're having around you. Okay? So, and this topic leads us to you knowing that There is nothing that ever happened to you that you did not create through this concept of self. Which then means that if your concept of self is creating everything, all the experiences you're currently having, both the good, the bad, the ugly, and all of those things, the indifferent, it then means that you are a creator. And as a creator, you are God. Okay? To prove this further, let me take you to... So, before I do that, so there is nothing, again, that has ever happened to you that you did not create by yourself, through concept of self. And I want us to establish, so let's go this way first. We'll come to the Bible verses that obviously says this, right? But before we go, because, when we say concept of self, how you see yourself, so if I see myself as poor, the world I'll be experiencing around me will be poverty world. If I see myself as unhealthy, the world I'll be experiencing around me will be world of sickness. So whatever you see yourself as is what you'll be experiencing, is what will be responsible for what you'll be experiencing. And the thing about that concept of self is it's definitive, right? So once there's a concept of self, then that concept of self will make you start experiencing, there are numberless ways you start experiencing things around your world that is in consonance with that your concept of self. We're going to dive deep, do a thorough deep dive into this topic. The reason I want to do this is because I want you to stop believing, as they tell you, that anyone else outside of you is responsible for anything that happens to you. Now, that is not to say that people around you don't do anything to you, but before they can do anything to you, you must have exhibited a concept of self, and they are just an instrument that is being used to meet that concept of self that you're exhibiting. That's the way it works. Because after all, you're living in this world with every other person, right? So that's why we'll come to all of those things, but I just wanted you to know, because we always think, we have this natural thinking that anything that happens to us, someone else is responsible for it, right? If you look at it, on the face level, that's what it is. Yeah, and of course, somebody else. So if you're exhibiting a concept of self, of sickness, a virus or bacteria or whatever pathogen has to come and meet that your need of that concept of self you're exhibiting. And the thing about concept of self is it doesn't matter if what you're putting out as concept of self is good or bad or ugly or indifferent. It doesn't matter. It will just return back to you. The one you put is, that's just basically the way it is. You'll be attracting the ones that are in the same frequency with the concept of self you are exhibiting. Do you understand? So that makes you a creator. And as a creator, all things are possible. All things are what? Possible. So through that concept of self, which we have established that makes you a creator, we say all things are possible. Before we come to all things are possible, let's even look at, the Bible verse that made it clear that you are a creator. Now, let's follow me to Jeremiah 18, verse 3 to 4. Before I proceed, I want to remind, I like putting out this caveat, because if you don't understand my message, you would think I am a pastor. Okay? You would confuse me for a pastor or a motivational speaker. I am none of those things. Do you understand? I am just a piece of life. That's what I am. And I've decided that I'll come to teach people that the Bible is not a religious book, but a psychological book, the greatest wonder, a living book. Living in the sense that it is practical. It's something you can apply directly to your life here, and you get experience. Just like when you throw stone up, it must come down. That is just how the Bible is. If you apply the principles in it, it will happen in your life. And you do not need anybody to help any of those principles happen to you, in the sense that you need one GO to help you talk to one God that is not existing anywhere outside of you, to then talk to that phantom God, and then that phantom God will now do something for you. Then you now pay the GO, you pay for the services, of course, because organized religion is nothing more than falsehood. One, falsehood in the sense that what they are teaching you, they cannot even apply it to themselves. But anyways, they obviously make you believe they can apply those things, but they cannot. They have the best doctors in the world. They go to the back and go and see their doctor, and they tell you to have faith. And it's not that faith doesn't work, right? Because the basis, the creative force, when the creation is happening, there's a creative force that do the work of that creation. All right, that creative force is fueled by faith. Faith is the fuel that it uses to do that creation. And that creative force is Jesus. And that Jesus is your wonderful human imagination. We'll come to that. But let's not digress needfully too much, okay? Let's come back a little bit. So I wanted to establish that. Okay, so I explained the falsehood part of it, how what they tell you is not what it's really. I mean, if somebody cannot teach you what is applicable, he can apply to himself. It just requires. So the model for them, their business model is they teach you, right? All those things they teach you, but you have to pay for it. But what they are teaching you is for you to go and do it supernaturally, but you still have to pay. Okay, that's the falsehood part of organized religion. Then that paying that you pay is the commercialization part of organized religion. You pay for the services. So you then begin to ask yourself, does God, that idea of God that you all have, that's the one outside of you, the old man sitting in a throne somewhere, that idea of God that you all have, so he collects, service charge. It's just that what I've also known, what I know is that it doesn't get to him. It is that special person, somebody who has come out of nowhere to make himself special and keep himself between you and him or herself, between you and that concept of God that is separate, that is outside of you. And then you have to, you have to go through, middleman system is what it is. And there's something about middleman system. Go and even check it, even in business world and all of those things. They frustrate, commercial ventures. Every system wants to get rid of middleman. So that's a middleman system. Organized religion, as it is a practice here in Nigeria and Africa, is a middleman system. Somebody comes from nowhere and tells you that he has direct access to God. If he prays for you, that God will do something for you. He's a middleman. Because there's that God, he will consult and tell him what to do. You tell God what to do. That's that idea of you guys, God. The old man sitting in a throne wearing a flowing gown in a golden throne, Yeah, he tells him, so you tell him what your problem is. He goes there and tell him or her, we don't know, of course. But I know that the picture we all have in our head is that it's a him, okay? So, and by the way, if there was ever any God like that, what would have been more suitable to that God is a she, not a he. Because God is creating, a creator. Women are creator. They're creators. They're the ones that born life, right? So if anything at all, if you consider that, which of course it's not what it is, but if let's, for explanation purpose, we consider that it should be a woman. But let's leave all of those things. So he makes himself a middleman, and then you have to pay charges. You have to pay, and the charges are comes in different designs and form. First fruit, tithing, blah blah blah, all of those things. Then you pay. The thing about it is, because that is not the way, right? And they are no, who this, they are not there, and there's not even any God. All of those things don't work. And you know that by the face of Africa, how Africa is in relation to the rest of the world who don't practice this nonsense we practice. So organized religion is a middleman system that is all about a baseless God, okay, and about falsehood and commercialization. That is what organized religion is. And that's why we have, I've taken this upon myself that I will now teach you, I will let you know the true nature, what the Bible actually is. And, when I started, if you've gone, I do my videos in live mostly, right? And on Facebook, live stays for 1 month. So if you're opportune to watch, you watch. If not, just continue to come to Ghent, okay? And continue to listen. At any point you join us, you will really understand what my teaching is. So I'm not a pastor. I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm only here with the purpose to let people know that the Bible is not a religious book, as the organized religion formation has always put it, has always modeled it. And that kind of modeling was just basically done, on the foundation of falsehood and commercialization. It doesn't work. It has never worked for Africa. It will never work for Africa. So it's time to turn around and set our sights in the right direction. And that's why I am doing this, okay? So now let me go back to what we are discussing today. The concept of yourself, is responsible for the world around you, the world you experience around you. So now, what makes you, this is where you are a creator. So whenever I'm reading Bible verse, just know it's in the context of the psychology and as a living book. So no, it has nothing to do with religion. So Jeremiah 18 verse 3 to 4 says, "So I went down to the potter's house, and I saw him working at the wheel, right? 4 then says, but the pot he was shaping from the clay was marred in his hands." That is, it's spoiled in his hands. "So the potter formed it into another pot, shaping it as seemed best to him." That's who you are. That's exactly what you are doing here in this world today. You are shaping as it seemed best to you all the experiences you're having. You are the one creating these whole experiences. All of the, whether it is experience of a rich, whether it's experience of wealth, whether it's experience of security, whether it's experience of healthfulness, whether it's experience of freedom, whether it's experience of joy, whether it's experience of peace, whether it's experience of love, you are the one shaping. And you notice something, that sometimes things go bad, then sometimes you are the one in mass. And the only difference today is that you are doing it unconsciously. And that's what sin stands for: missing the mark. So you're doing it unconsciously, you are missing the mark. When you start doing it consciously, how do you start doing it consciously? When you start, what do we mean by when you start doing it consciously? When you start doing it consciously is that I want this thing now. And you carry out the principles as that is laid down in the living book. Just like when you throw something up, it must fall. As it laid down, the moment you can carry out that principle as it is laid down in the living book, that thing, you must have it. And once you have it, you know that, okay, I wanted A and I did, the principle, apply the principles of the living book for getting A, and I got A. What you have done is you have created consciously, just like this potter. That's why you are here. The one you create, if you don't like it, you break it, push it aside, and remold into another one. As is, can you imagine the liberty you have in this world? That liberty is what you're going to give to a middleman to go consult a God that doesn't exist anywhere except inside of you. Did you hear that liberty you have? He says, shaping it as it seems best to you. Whatever you want to do, you do as it seems best to you. Yes, you are actually, because already you are creating the world around you, and based on the world around you, you're either experiencing good or bad thing, right? And you're the one creating it, you're the one shaping it as it seems best to you, even if you're currently doing it unconsciously. And let me tell you that in this, our job of creation here, you can create good or bad, or whichever one. That's why it says all things are what? Possible. All things are what? Possible. Okay? Let's look for that. All things, at least you know that all things are possible. When the Bible says all things, it doesn't mean all good things. So it does not mean all good things. So this is where you all get it wrong. This is part of the falsehood about the Christendom teachings. It does not mean all good things. So all things means the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent. All things. Okay? And let me tell you, okay, if you go to John 1 verse 3, it says, through him all things were made. Without him, nothing was made that has been made. All things so were made, and without him, nothing was made that has been made. So, you know that the word is about good and bad, right? All things, okay? So it is through this concept of self. That's that through him. That's the Jesus Christ, that concept. And mind you, the Bible says, let's quickly prove to you that before we go to talk about all things, right? Because people don't know that all things is not only good things. All things are both the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's why he told you all things are possible. So those spots, those experiences that you're shaping, as it's best to you, as it seems best to you. The reason why creating unconsciously, which is what we're all doing, is that anyone comes and we create anyone and we go, So because all things are possible, we are also obviously unconsciously we are creating both the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we're looking for who to blame. Well, the reason why we are blaming people is because someone have to save us the experience that is in consonance with what we are putting out. Right? So all things are possible. But before we go further, I just wanted to point out who is that through him, all things. That through him is still you, right? It's still the Christ in you. But who is Christ? Who is Christ? So who is that through him? All things are possible. Remember, the last lecture we had, I said Christ is in you, right? So is that you are the true. It is you that is there, and it is you. But we want to highlight who is that Christ that is in you. We're coming. It says in 1 Corinthians 1:24, but to those whom God has called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. Christ, in New Living Translation, it calls it Christ is the power of God and the wisdom of God. Christ is not a man that lived on the surface of this earth as the way it is being preached religiously. We've understood is in you. We've understood is the power and wisdom of God. And because I said you're God, not just you, everything is God. Everything came forth and will go back. So 1 Corinthians 1:24 made it clear that Christ is the wisdom and the power of God. It's there. Go and look at it. And I'm coming. Let me show you something. I just told you that he is not a man that lived in time. Okay, if we go to 2 Corinthians 13:5, it says, examine yourself, test whether you're in faith, blah, blah, blah. Do you not realize that Christ is in you? So, power and wisdom is always in something. Everything is always pointing back here and not here. Everything is pointing back in and not out. The temple of God is here. God does not dwell in the, there's a Bible verse that made us understand that God does not dwell in the temple made by human hand. So that building you're going to, God doesn't dwell there. It's here. Right? It's here. Everything just points back here, points back here, points back here. I'm coming. I have interesting things to teach today. Remember, we are on concept of self, right? I'm coming. You're going to learn. You'll be shocked at the things you're going to be learning. So I'm looking for that verse that puts the final nail on the fact that Christ isn't a man. Through him all things were made. We've read that. Okay, I think. Sorry, permit me. Second Corinthians 5 verse 16, it says, so from now on, we regard no one from a worldly point of view. Though we once regarded Christ in this way, we do so no longer. What will make it clear is this ESV. From now on, therefore, we regard no one according to the flesh. Even though we once regarded Christ according to the flesh, we regard him talks no longer. Christ wasn't a man that lived. Is the creative, is the wisdom and power of God, and you are God. I am. You are God. I am the Lord. You are God. So your wisdom and your power, which is the creative human imagination force in you, is what Christ is, and that's what is going to resurrect in you. If it resurrects in you, you start creating consciously. Okay? But let's come to all things so that, when the Bible says all things, and as it applies to this, okay, let's do that all things. It's important. This lesson is critical. So, when people are told that they are the one responsible for everything that happened, they don't believe it, to be honest. And this is also something that fuels the falsehood and the commercial model of the Christendom, right? The organized religion. They use this to put fear in you to enable their commercialization tactics easier. How? They tell you somebody is doing you. I've told the story, I don't know if I've told the story of the guy we stay together, hang out together, eat together, drink together. All of a sudden, we'll stop seeing him. Later, we heard he was sick. Before we know it, that he went somewhere. They told him what happened to him, was from here. It turned out that it was reactivation of chickenpox. There's a particular, disease like that and all of that, when I made some researches and all. But this guy's completely stuck up even until today. And he made it, he said, whoever told him said he was here. So, put that scare in him. I am very sure he dropped money he paid for that service. Right? But I'm here to let you know today, it is only the concept of yourself that creates the world around you. Then also, in addition, it's not just the concept of yourself and the concept you have of others. That's why you need to focus. The concept of yourself creates the world around you. So let's look at it. Ephesians 5:13, he said, all things, when admitted, are made manifest by light. We know what light is, obviously. It's the creative power. It's Christ. It's, and we already say it's in you. So when you admit all things, if you accept anything, admitting means all things, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. That's how creation happens now. If you admit it, if it becomes a concept, like an assumption, a concept of yourself, admitting it that it is true of yourself, it will be made manifest by that creative power and wisdom that is in you, which is Christ. It will be made manifest. That's what Ephesians is telling you. Did you see it? Did you see that, Ephesians 5:13? All things when admitted. So what does this mean? If you admit that you are insecure, you will be insecure. If you admit that you've lost, so it's about, put it this way, it's about the worldview you have of yourself. That's what you manifest. The light is there, which is the creative power to make you experience it. And the thing about it is, you will now start experiencing it in a numberless ways. There are millions of ways, billions of ways you can experience the concept you have of yourself. Now, this is an interesting one. Mark 7, verse 17, 23 to 17, 23. So Mark 7, verse 17 to 23. After he had left the crowd and entered the house, his disciples asked him about this parable. Are you so dull? He asked them. Don't you see that nothing enters a person from the outside can defile them Nothing from the out. The outside is just a product, a reflection of what the concept of self, just like he says here, when it is admitted, the concept, the view of your own self. Whatever you're experiencing, that lady that is making you angry, that girl that is making you angry, that neighbor that is making you angry, that it is because you've created it here. That's why you are experiencing it. So if you want to change it, it's not going to start dealing with what is outside. No. In fact, when dealing with what is outside, it means you have not touched the source where it is coming from. You will just, you are not doing anything, so you continue to experience it. I will give you I will give an example of what happened to me and how I said these things are the things it's like throwing stone up and the next, it must fall down, right? It must come down. The Bible is a psychological living book that if you apply the principles as it is, you will have the experience. As it has been stated, that if you apply this principle, you will have the experience. You need no, I'm not going to use the F word, I wanted to use it. You need no middleman. Because the middleman, they are in another direction. Their own God is outside of you. So it's a completely falsehood thing. Okay? So now, it says here, don't you see that nothing that enters a person from the outside can defile them? For it does not go into their heart, but into their stomach. So it comes from the heart and then out of the body. You see? Ephesians 5:13. All things when admitted. So nobody is doing you. And you see, the Christendom, there's this thing, they say, touch not my anointed. So you shouldn't criticize them for projecting falsehood for decades to the society, shining the light to the society in the wrong direction. Then when you talk, they say, don't talk to them that touch not my anointed and do my prophet no harm. They talk all of those things, use it to cover their tracks. And they will say they will curse you. If you curse me, if I don't admit it, it's not going to happen. In fact, when I don't admit it as my concept of self, it bounces back to the sender. It happens. That will be another topic I'm going to treat another day and show you the Bible verses that, proves that. So what we have been able to establish here is that the concept of selves creates all things around you, good, and all things is not just all good things. All things are good, bad, everything. Let me come to what all things are now. There was a verse I wanted to, that God, because your God lives, that God, lives in heaven and all of those, wherever. But So all things when admitted, that's the theme. That's the highlight of the Bible verse, that we have read today. That's the highlight. Okay? That's the highlight. So we've been able to establish it, you know. Okay? So that's why you need to be careful the kind of thing you accept to be true of yourself. Because if you accept the bad ones, you are responsible for the good, the bad, and the good. I form the light and create the darkness. You form the good things, you create the bad ones. You bring prosperity, you create disaster in your life. You are the God, you do all these things. You are the Lord, you do all these things. That's Isaiah 45 verse 7. I form the light, I create the darkness, I bring prosperity and create disaster. I, the Lord, do all these things. That's why in Philippians 4 verse 8, it tells us, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. For then it goes to Proverbs 23 verse 7 and says, for as a man thinketh in his heart, so he is. Eat, drink, said he to thee, but his heart is not what the lip service you pay. It is the concept of self. That's how you think in your heart about it. That's what is responsible. Then in Philippians, it's not advising you whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable should be the concept you should have of yourself. So that because that is what because this law, this thing that you're learning today doesn't care whether it is good or bad. You think it doesn't care, and that's why it tells you in this Isaiah 45 verse 7 that I form the light. It's telling you that all things are both the light, the darkness, the prosperity, the disaster. In fact, let me even now go to the Bible verse where it reels it out. All of those things, all things are not just good things. They are both disaster, they are both light, they are darkness. You create all of those things, and it is through Christ that is the creative force that you are creating those things. Because it says when you admit it, they will be made manifest by light, and light is Christ, and Christ is you, not one human being that has lived somewhere. We've established all of these things here. But I want to let you know why it advised you in Philippians 4 verse 8 to think things that are noble, pure, lovely, admirable. Now, this is because you are capable of, just like the Jeremiah, where, you're molding as it seems best to you. Now, do you get? It's not the thing that is happening to you is not. I'll give an example. I've watched somewhere, and I had this concept in my heart as the Bible made it here. I told it's a living book. And I was having this experience, this particular experience from one lady. one of my colleagues. And I knew where it was coming from. I didn't deal with it. I continued looking from outside, trying to fight the lady, other than going back in and tweaking it from. Because remember in Mark, when we read Mark, it says Mark 17, 7 verse 17, where it said, do you not see that nothing enters a person from the outside can defile them? So nothing that lady can do, is doing can defile me. What is actually defile me is what is inside. What the concept I'm having about the situation is what is defiling me. Not what she was doing was a product of what was inside. Now let's go down to 20 of that verse, of that Mark 7. So Mark 7 verse 20 here. He said, what comes out of a person? Listen, in the 18th verse of it, he said, are you dull? He asked, don't you see that nothing enters a person from the outside that can defile him? Nothing from the outside. What the lady is doing is not where the problem is, because nothing from the outside is responsible. Now he now went on to verse 20. He said, what comes out of a person is what defiles them. It was what I was thinking, my concept, my assumption of that situation was what defied me, not the lady. For it is from within, out of person's heart, that evil thoughts come from. The evil thoughts that will mar you. That's where it comes from. So the Bible used evil here. Then he went and give different meaning. Talked about sexual immorality, theft, murder, blah, 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 malice, deceit. So all of those, it is when you have a concept of it. Okay? All these things. Do you get? So this lady kept doing this thing, and I didn't go change my concept from within. I allowed it. Do you know what happened? Later, the lady left the organization. And the lady that was very close to me started repeating that thing the other lady was doing. And that's when I just stayed and I just smiled. I said, okay, this is it, man. I know what I did. And I said, okay. So you see, it does not matter. So if you're still thinking somebody is doing you, tomorrow if that person is not in the picture, another person will arise and start doing you. You know why? Because you have continued to reinforce that will of karma by tackling it from the outside. The Bible says it's not what is outside. See, if you even look at it, everything that is outside is a product of what is inside. So why are you going on the outside? So I went in and I fixed it and I cut off that will of karma. Then the lady that was supposed to be my friend that then started acting like the other person now started behaving well. And the first person who was doing it, I was actually fighting the person physically. But when I now saw the pattern of what, I now reminded myself the concept of self. When I saw the pattern move from here to unexpected, somebody I didn't expect should do it. In fact, somebody that has no reason to started, I just tweaked it immediately and it ended on the spot. Check your life, trace these patterns and you will see it. So is your concept of self, what is in your heart? That thing that you have established that it is so in your heart is what is responsible for all of these things that is happening around you. That's the topic for today's lecture. So don't forget all things, Ephesians 5:13, all things when admitted are made manifest by light. So in our next lesson, next Sunday, we'll now teach what are those things that really happen and how the steps to change. Just like I said, I changed that one, So I will not teach about the step to change it. But I want to remove this falsehood in your head that the Christendom have put it there, that you know, has instilled in you. I want to let you know what all things really is. Now, First Samuel First Samuel 2, verse 6 to 10. He said, the Lord killeth you. You kill it, right? And make it alive. He bringeth down the grave and bringeth it up. The Lord maketh poor, and the Lord maketh rich. He bringeth low, and lifteth up. He raised up the poor out of the dust, and he lifted up the beggar from the dunghill to set them among princes, and to make them inherit the throne of glory. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and he had set the word upon them. The pillar out of which creation happened is the Lord, and he dwells in you, and you are him, and he is you. He will keep the feet of his saints, and the wicked shall be silent in darkness, for by his strength shall no man prevail. The advances of the Lord shall be broken into pieces, out of the heaven shall thunder upon. The Lord shall judge the ends of the earth, and shall give strength also to the king and all. So basically what I want to drive out here, he killeth, he maketh alive. He killeth, he maketh alive. All right. So he has told you these things are possible. Through him all things were made, and there was nothing that was made that has not been made. You know, that's it. So know it and know peace today. Know where to look when you see, if the word that is around you, you don't like it, you are the potter. You can mar it, break it, and remold it into what you like. And know that everything that happens to you are the response or the reflection of what is in. Because nothing from outside can harm you, except that what is from inside is what will harm you. So you need no middleman, you need no pay nobody. Know this thing. Next lesson will teach the steps to do this creation and uncreate. One new thing will teach the steps on how to get it. Anything you want. But if there's already a particular one, you are seeing the pattern that it is continually happening in your life that you don't like, you can break it up, just like I did, and then remold it into something lovely. It's all here in us. It's all in. Thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. If the lecture offends you, I'm not sorry. I just have to begin to teach this because I've seen that Africa, Nigeria and Africa at large is a hotbed of falsehood and commercialization of the Bible content by the organized religion. And that has to start changing. You need no middleman. You just need to apply the principles that is laid down in the living book. It's just like a manual. right? The manual, you buy something, you see a manual in it. The manual shows you how to use it, and then you use it that way, and it works for you. That's what the Bible is. The Bible is a manual to this your life here, this your physical life here. That's what it is. So you read the manual, it shows you how to use it, and then you just use it, and it just works. You need no middleman, my friend. Thank you once more for joining us at GNT. We'll do this again next week. Next week, Sunday, 9 a.m. as usual. Join us. Thank you for listening, and enjoy your life, really. Bye. GNT.